For my hoarse voice, I just recovered from COVID. I suffered, this is my first working day. I'm not dangerous, be sure, but sorry, I won't be very loud, and forgive me for slowly speech. First of all, I'd like to stress that I'm very happy to be once again in Karachi. Some of you know, and I see the familiar faces of my very good friends, that I spent 4.5 years as Deputy Consul General 4 years ago, and now I was lucky to be back, to send back. So in the City of Lights, in the city which I like very much, the city which made my career and assisted me to grow up as a diplomat, in spite of the fact that I'm more than about 30 years I'm in service. But the Karachi 4.5 years was best in my life. I visited many countries, but I was happy when I received this piece of news that I'm going back. So thank you very much, and let's start working. First of all, let me say a few words about our bilateral relations. And all of you, I hope you have my answers to make your life easier. Then we can forget about these answers. No, you can use them in your job, but we can speak free on the topics you want to ask me. You know, all these official answers are very, very nice, but free talk is much better, as I understand. So I want to stress that our bilateral relations have definitely strengthened for last years. In less than a year, we saw 2 historic trips. There was an official visit of our foreign minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, to Islamabad on April 7th, 2021. And then also we saw a fantastic visit of your former Prime Minister Imran Khan to Moscow on February 24th. During his meeting with Mr. Putin, our president, Imran Khan expressed the hope that the trust and cordiality marking our relationships. So Russia and relations between Russia and Pakistan would translate into further deepening and broadening of bilateral cooperation, I'm sure. And trust me, I'll do my best to achieve these goals and to achieve everything, to do everything to broaden our cooperation. We adhere to the same principles and has set the same priorities. So we have 2 very important tracks of our cooperation. One is regional security. There are a lot of issues in the frames of Shanghai Organization, Afghanistan, and other issues which are very serious now in these days. The second thing is our bilateral economic cooperation. Unfortunately, there are few things which affected badly. First, we have to remember this COVID situation. And before that COVID, we saw the sustainable growth of our trade. It was about $7 million per year. When I was here, it was about $5 million per year. So we saw the growth. COVID affected, and there was a 12% decrease in 2021. Now, after these COVID lockdowns, everything started being better, but these illegal and Western sanctions against Russia affected it. So now we have a problem because banks cannot work normally. The important part of our economic cooperation is very beneficial for Pakistan and also for Russia, the Karachi-Lahore gas pipeline project. I want to stress that in spite of all turbulences of internal situation in Pakistan, the agreement was reached with the former government. It was reached in 2015 when the PMLN was in power. So I hope, and I know what Pakistan ambassador said in Moscow just a couple of days ago, that Pakistani government is very much interested in this project and they are going to work on it. So it was crystal clear, said in Moscow. So I want to stress that my country, my side is also interested in this project, and we should work hard together to overcome these sanctions, all this blah, blah, blah of any third countries. Pakistan needs gas, we need economic cooperation, and also Pakistan needs our oil, like your finance minister declared a couple of days ago. Last week, I'm sorry, they're much cleverer than me, so they should be, you know, they should not demonstrate that they're much cleverer, but they are. Sorry. So this is what I should concentrate on. Politics is not my pair of shoes. Counsel General is not an ambassador, please try to understand this. But I am open for any questions. I am ready to answer them, and I try not to avoid even unpleasant questions. So all other things about regional security, all things you may read in my answers. Just forgive me that it is not very easy to speak, and I want to concentrate on your questions because it's much, much better. So who will be the first? So Mrs. Agam will be next, sorry.
Yes.
Everybody knows that we are friends. They will be very against if I give you the first floor.
Don't worry, you can manage.
Okay. His Excellency, right now Pakistan and Russian trade is far below its potential. What steps do you think that needed to enhance bilateral trade volume?
You know, I cannot give recommendations to the Pakistani government. Other countries do like that. They are very fond of giving advice, piece of advice when they are not asked. But if you ask me, if I were, I would discuss the issue of two currencies trade. To forget about dollar or euro. With many countries, we're on track. With some countries, we have an agreement, but we make our economic cooperation in rupee, ruble, rupee. This is the first and very important step. But of course, your government is much more clever than I, and I know they know for sure what to do with that. Mr. Zagam.
Excellency, first of all, many congratulations as a Counsel General and welcome back to Karachi.
Thank you.
Second thing, one thing is very important for our media that Imran Khan visited our past Prime Minister on 7th April 2021. So, do you have any knowledge that any MOU signed between the both countries in petroleum and gas sector? Which is, this question is very important because
the agreement on this pipeline was signed.
pipeline only.
Pipeline, there were some discussions, but it was announced that this agreement was signed. Дайте микрофон, товарищ. Кто первый? And you will be the next, okay?
My question is that a couple of days ago, I saw on the television one of the anchors of some news channel was stating that the oil that comes from Russia cannot be refined by the refineries in Pakistan. Is there any truth to that?
What do you mean cannot refine?
That's what he said. He said the oil that comes from Russia, we have to set up a new refinery all together in order to use that oil. I don't know the technical approach to that. If there is any truth to that, then I would appreciate if you could clarify that, because
You know,
they are probably trying to tell us that this is the reason why they are not buying oil from Russia.
all right, just an excuse. Девушке дайте его. Нет, вот девушке дайте, пожалуйста. So, I continue. I think that's just an excuse. There is oil and there is money. We can always make a deal on that. And those who are saying like this, maybe they are working for some other people who want to make some basement, to create basement for non-purchasing Russian stuff.
Sir, my only question is that Finance Minister of Pakistan expressed an interest to buy oil from Russia. So would the Russian government like to sell cheaper oil to Pakistan or not?
All right, you know, of course, if we are bargaining with our friends, we can make some steps. But trust me, I am not the person who authorized to say, yes, we can make these discounts.
What type of discount?
I would like to add, he would prefer good conditions. That is the main thing. Will it be discounts or maybe some other thing that we will discuss? But conditions will be good.
Or, you know,
I think that is the main point.
or, you know, if two friends are meeting during negotiations, they always can make a deal.
But former Prime Minister Imran
Negotiate about the future possibilities and then sign agreement. That is not just let's talk and let's do it.
You know,
Yes, the negotiation was good conditions for both countries, and it was going to be continued. But now we don't know what will be the future.
all right, you know, can I disclose you some state secrets? Okay, you are very interested in that. You know, many years ago, I was working in the presidential administration. And now we disclose the secret how these negotiations are held, usually. The leaders have in their agenda these 2-3 phrases on every topic. And they say, after we agree, in principle, our experts will make an agreement, will make a deal. Did I answer your question?
And I would love to discuss with you on this topic after this.
Okay, we'll see. Cool.
My name is Javed Emil Malik, and I have I think, a lot of questions to ask you, but I can ask one or two, right? And my simple question is this: okay, is there any chance of Russia-Ukraine conflict could be resolved by peaceful means?
Resolve.
Yeah.
Ukrainian crisis.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a lot of chances to resolve it with peaceful means.
Okay.
If you allow me, I will just remind you about, in brief, the history of the conflict. We were waiting for 8 years, offering a lot of proposals how to resolve this crisis in peaceful means. My president said it and repeated many times. The negotiations continued even after these military operations started. The Ukrainian side is playing their games. I think they are not sovereign, and Americans and Britons dictate them what to do and how to behave. And the situation for them is worsening every day. So the red lines we were ready to discuss before the conflict, many years, my president met Western leaders and tried to explain them our security concerns and what measures we will take if we are not listened, we are not heard. But we were pushed to the wall. You know, I don't think the US reaction on military exercises of Russian army in Mexico will cause another reaction. They did everything, this conflict, to start. they put a fuel into this conflict. This is the only ones in the history when, during some conflicts, the other sides, the third countries, not declaring to stop it, but to declaring that they should achieve their goals on the battlefield, like so-called Minister of Foreign Affairs of Europe said. Like, he's not a diplomat, like he's a general, but he doesn't look like a general. That they supply weapons there, so our line will be further to the west. More mightinous weapons they supply, more territory we should clear and demilitarize. So I think also that people have their sovereign right to speak the language they used to speak. And you remember that conflict in Ukraine started from the coup d'etat, and the first act of this so-called government was to prohibit using of Russian language. And I remind you that Russian language speaks half of the population of Ukraine. About 20 million. Others, they use it every day. But 20 million, this is a native language. Just imagine that tomorrow you should speak French. Just imagine what you say. And who first started using army against the civilians? Western countries, they were so against it in Libya, in Syria, in other places, in Yugoslavia. But they didn't notice 8 years of terror, of genocide of Russian population in Donbass. They are saying about some raped children. I will tell you that the lady in Ukrainian government was fired for this lie. But they continue to repeat it. Ukrainians say that it's not true. Did they remember about children in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Somalia, in Libya, in Syria, in Yugoslavia, in the heart of Europe, in Yugoslavia, when they were bombing with their liberal bombs and in the very democratic way, and they were bombing civilians. So when they are doing this, that's okay. Russia decided to protect its security interests. Shame on it. I will remind you a funny story here in Karachi. One foreign diplomat, CG, having met our diplomats on some event, said, Russians, you should be in the shame corner. Go to the shame corner. Do it now. You are not allowed to be in the civil society. After all, I received an article from the internet. This CG is a harasser. He was in scandal with transgender in Karachi. So this harasser, who abused ladies, decided to teach us morality, to lecture us. This is very Western style. You know, maybe you published this, maybe not, but I always thought ladies should forgive me. You know, they look like an old shrewd slut who are lecturing morality in the school for girls. You know, after committing so many crimes in India, in Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, when it was one country, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, this European so-called civilization trying to lecture us about the human rights, about how to behave. Sorry, this is something wrong in it.
Thank you very much for your brief answer.
Sorry. Yeah, please.
Okay, I just would like to add something for all of you in order you can understand the situation in Ukraine from the right side. The matter said that it was not Russia who started that conflict. I want you to understand. The conflict started in 2015 when Ukrainian troops started to bomb their peaceful region in Donbass and Lugansk. That time, common people, not militaries, decided to arrange their defense forces. Not Russian, I repeat. Ukrainian, but from Donetsk and Lugansk. They started to defend their land, and they managed to win. After that, government of Ukraine and government of Donetsk and Lugansk signed an agreement. It was called Minsk Agreement First, where Donetsk and Lugansk still the territory of Ukraine, but with a special position, like autonomy. They can have their own language, they can have their own education program, but they would be the part of Ukraine. Russia was one of the side of the government. France and German was all side of the government. And that agreement must be resolved, must be fulfilled from the both sides. Donetsk and Lugansk, we agree with it. But Ukrainian government started to bomb again. Again and again. Russia, as a person who was in charge of negotiations, started to persuade, first of all, Mr. Poroshenko, then Mr. Zelensky, to fulfill that that agreement. They didn't respond first, but eventually Mr. Zelensky said they will not fulfill that agreement, which he signed before himself. Moreover, he said that they would like to have nuclear bomb in order Russia cannot do anything in order to help the people. And they started to bomb again Donetsk and Lugansk more often. After that, our president decided to, first of all, he decided to accept the independence of two new regions from Ukraine. And when they signed the independence of that republics, that government of republics asked for the help from Russian side to protect them from Ukrainian side. Only after that, Russian troops came to Ukraine in order to protect two of the region. What I want you to understand, Russia didn't invent Ukraine. Russia just to help two new republics to protect themselves from the military side of Ukraine. That is the main thing. There was not any intervention. That is something kind of releasing, of helping people to live. That is what just we want you to understand.
So,
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I would like to lighten the mood up. My name is Azam. I am the Chief Editor of Traveler International Magazine. My field of expertise is travel and tourism and aviation. Promotion of trade and pipeline and all that is very important, but the huge potential lies in the promotion of tourism between two countries as well. And the Russian airline Aeroflot is not operating to Pakistan for many, many years now. Are there any plans to promote this sector, because it has a lot of potential between Pakistan and Russia, tourism side and aviation, of course?
First of all, I'd like to stress once again that visas are open for Pakistani tourists and Pakistani businessmen. Everybody are welcome. We have a procedure of obtaining these visas, but all main decisions were being taken, and Pakistani citizens are welcome in Russia. What about Aeroflot things? This must be reached during the negotiations between the governments. Of course, if there is a business interest for private company Aeroflot, just you have to understand that this is a private company. I think they have a potential market here, and we shouldn't share it with Qatar Airways or Emirates or with Turkish Airways. The other thing which is also necessary to understand and to fix the situation with our aircrafts in the world. The Western countries are tracing them and trying to arrest these aircrafts. This is illegal part of illegal sanctions against Russia. And why I'm using these, not because I'm so negative to these sanctions, but I want you to remind, because you know this, that sanctions are legal only when Security Council of UN impose them on the country. No country is allowed to impose sanctions by its will, or group of countries. This is important to understand. That is why these are illegal sanctions. When we understand how to fix it, I guess there is a lot of potential for this cooperation in the field of civil aviation.
Your Excellency, my name is Fazal Abbasi and I am belong from Travel Explorer. This is travel related services. As you said, after COVID-19, economy going down and has been decreased. So you have any plan? Will you give any relaxation in travel policy, visa and other thing to promote travel industries, tourists and to strong Pakistan-Russia friendship?
I just said that visas are open. Please do come. And during my times in before, we have during the season, the high season, about 200, 250 people per day who receive visas in Karachi. It was 4 years ago, before the COVID times. Please understand that only 5 months in Russia are very good for Pakistani tourists. I don't think you want to face -20 and snow or -5 and rain with snow. This is not very good. But these summer months, which are high season, are open. Please go. The only thing, you should have cash, because our Western colleagues, they do not want banks to work in Russia. I mean foreign banks, so your cards can be blocked there. But with cash there is not a problem.
His Excellency, about Ukrainian conflict, we often get one-sided information, mostly from Western media. So people would like to know the other side of picture as well. What step you or your country is taking to counter this situation?
First of all, I'm here to counter this situation. What the very nice thing in Western democracies, I will repeat these words many times. They're fighting for the right people to say, for the right of information. What was the first step? To block Russian media, to block Russia Today, to block Russian-speaking channels abroad, to block newspapers, even Russian newspaper. I cannot open some of newspapers here in Pakistan. To block Russian newspapers, to block Russian television, to block everything. I want to ask if they're so much afraid of what we are saying, of what our media, they impose sanctions against our journalists, on our journalists. This is the first time in the world history when press people, journalists, your colleagues, are under severe sanctions in Western countries. That's true. You may check the sanctions list. Our anchors, TV anchors, newspapers anchors are not allowed to travel abroad. From some of them, their property abroad arrested in Italy and other countries. This is how to prove they're fighting for the freedom. They're fighting for your right to know. What we can do with that? First, we speak, and I'm a CG meeting you, and ready to answer your questions about the situation, how we see it. You may not trust me, you may say that this is propaganda, but I saw a lot of propaganda from the Western side, a lot of propaganda. And they're very much against the people. They're starting canceling people who want to think another way. You know, if you are not in their standard of so-called truth and reality, you are kicked out from the society. Just try to publish something in Facebook, in Twitter. Just try to do this. They will block you immediately. Why? Why they're doing it? That's the very first thing. The second thing is, if you are interested in meeting our press people, to come them to Pakistan, for example, to organizing some discussions, some meeting, interview to interview, you know, we are ready to assist you to organize this, and I have some requests from Russian media how to make it. The second thing is, the third, of course, I cannot give any recommendations to your side, but I do not see PTV or any other channel press people in Moscow working on the permanent basis. I think you also can send these requests. Your government should send the request. You're telling just to send people to just see with your own eyes. I'm not saying what to write. You go out and you write whatever you want about me, about my country, my country. But please do go there. Why our friends are so much against you to go there? I mean, from all countries, to see with their own eyes. Go to Donbass. We can send the request to Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia. They organize the tour there. I'm sure they will be ready to assist you to go there, to speak with the people, to meet the people, to see with your own eyes, to see the graves of small children in Donbass killed by Ukrainian army, to speak to their relatives, to see it is fake or not, just with your own eyes. Maybe it's a very wise thing to do. Maybe it's time to see what is going on there for the people, and then to take the decision. Moreover, we are very much pleased with Pakistan government position on this crisis. I want to stress this. Pakistan is behaving like a friend. Please do not forget to mention it. This is truth and this is reality. Pakistan is our friend. You are not against us in this situation. I know how you're voting in UN, what you are saying during negotiations. That's very valuable. And friends indeed, friends in need are friends indeed. You know, we are watching carefully which country how to behave in this situation. And you know, every war, every conflict, every situation finishes with negotiations and finishes with peace. Otherwise, we should run to Moscow and to church, and then just to think about the cremation or whatever. There is no other option than to negotiate and to make deals. Sorry. I'm sorry, I just remind you that I'm after COVID. Just forgive me.
Russia is achieved 100% result of attack on Ukraine. 100% result.
We achieved a lot there. If you see the map, you can see what we achieved there. You know, first in the history, so Ukraine lost about 27-30% of its territory. Why we are so slowly? I want to stress this. This is the first time in the history we're taking care about civilians. Of course, there are some casualties, but we are doing our best not to kill civilians, not to kill them. Of course there are some, but we are not bombing like other countries do, without paying attention on what is down. We are not using these artillery systems without paying attention on this. So we are trying to prevent unnecessary casualties. But be sure, very soon you will see the results. So, yes, please.
Hi, my name is Sana Fatma. I'm from Dunya TV. So my question is, how much more time will be needed before these two countries, Russia and Ukraine, reach a peace agreement? And what is the future of this conflict, and where is this heading?
In any case, peace is the future of this conflict. In any case. You know, if they were serious during the negotiations, if they are not changing their position every 5 minutes, if they are not lying, if they do not lie to us and to their partners, if they can concentrate on achieving peace, we could make a deal much earlier. But every day they are losing their territory because we cannot admit even the ideas the idea that foreign troops will be near our frontier lines. Nuclear weapons won't be there, 100%. You may put my words in the bank, to the bank. We do our best to prevent deployment of nuclear weapons and foreign troops on the Ukraine territory. This is our life. This is our security, and there can be any compromise on that. If they are clever enough, they start normal negotiations today or tomorrow. They could do it on 23rd of February. All the proposals were on the table. Just to withdraw troops from Donbass. Stop shooting. Stop killing people. Withdraw troops. And we can sit and negotiate. They never trust clever people. What to do? Just.
Excellency, your presence reminded me of Counsel General Medvedev. You seem quite optimistic in this conflict, I must say, because the way you are talking that peace is the answer to everything. But the way we see weapons pouring into Ukraine, how do you see this conflict growing in the next 1 year or two? Because the way I see it, Ukraine is going to be divided in two parts. One which will be closer to Russia. There will be a line drawn, and the other will be like part of European Union. Maybe I may be wrong, but this is my assessment. So, in that case, how do you see this conflict growing? Because I see Ukraine being part of European Union in the next maybe 5 years, 10 years, but it seems so. And one more question, if I can ask. How do you see the impact of this Russia-Ukraine war on Pakistan-Russia relationship? Thank you.
I will start, if you allow me, from the second question. The main impact is that we cannot make normal economic cooperation because of blocking our bank transfers. This is the impact. This is the most important impact on our bilateral economic relations. But it is fixable. We can resolve this situation. And we can easily resolve this situation when the government agrees on that. The second, I know about the pressure on Pakistan from the Western side not to deal with Russia. So, but I see the reaction of Pakistan. I told you that Pakistan is behaving like a friend. That's from second question. Now about the first question. I cannot make prognosis now because I'm a diplomat, I'm not a politologist. They are allowed to say whatever they want. And today I was watching a TV program on Russian TV where they remind them about their prognosis made 3 months ago. They just put on the screen in the studio. They were shocked and paralyzed. They all were wrong. But your question is very important. I would like to remind you that Ukraine is a very, very small so-called empire. It consists of, it was artificially made by communist leaders after the revolution. Before that, we didn't have any Ukraine. Some part belonged to Austria-Hungary, some to Romania, some after the revolution it went to Poland. Some part were very Russian, the territory where we had war. Now, we call it military operation, but this is a civil war among Ukrainians. Do not forget about it, that this army of Donbass, of Donetsk and Lugansk, two new states, they are taking part along with us. They are not part of Russian army, and they are fighting for their freedom. So, a big part of modern Ukraine was presented by Lenin, by Stalin, and I don't know why they dismantle monuments to Lenin, because he created Ukraine. Stalin presented the western part of Ukraine to Ukraine. was former Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia. After the World War II, it was a trophy. You know, and with Poland, they don't like this to admit, but we exchanged territories. They received a lot of German territories, which we had to receive after the Second World War as a trophy. But they decided to exchange. And our European colleagues that time, Churchill and Truman and before Roosevelt, they admitted this. So there is a very artificial state where people speak different languages, different. Ukrainian nationalists didn't prohibit only Russian language, they prohibit Hungarian, and there is a great clash with Hungary now. Slovakian, Romanian, Greek, Jewish, and other Tatar languages. They did it. The second present to Ukraine, which were condemned severely, was made by Nikita Khrushchev in '54 when he decided to present, like he is a lord of the universe, the part of Russia, the Crimea. It was made with only one paper signed, without any referendums, without anything. He decided that about 3 million people of Crimea should become Ukrainians and should speak Ukrainian language. They never agreed with that. That is why they were the first who left Ukraine. I will remind you about this, how it happened. One person was shot down in Crimea during the operation and during the referendum. And it was an idiot who decided to take his gun. 80% of Ukrainian army now is serving in Russian army in Crimea. The same percentage of the police and security agencies, they're now serving with us. They didn't press. We allowed everybody who wanted to leave Crimea with any other thing. 20% left. Military personnel. Others, they're enjoying servicing in our army and fighting now for the freedom of Donbas people. So this is why I'm in these small details wanted to stay with the history of Ukraine. I'm sure that the Ukraine will not exist in the frontier lines, in the modern frontier. How it happened, what will be the agreement, what territories of Ukraine decide to go where, to Russia, to be independent, maybe to go to Poland, to Hungary, to Romania, I don't know. That is why I'm not making any prognosis. People should decide. If we admit the referendum in Kosovo, decision of Parliament of Kosovo to be independent of Serbia, while we do not admit the will and wish of people in eastern Ukraine to be independent or to live with Russia. If we have South Sudan, Eastern Timor, if we admit the collapse of Yugoslavia and appearing of new states in Yugoslavia, if you admit Czech Republic and Slovakian Republic instead of Czechoslovakia, frankly speaking, if you admit the collapse of Soviet Union, who said that this is not legal? You should live together in one state. Helsinki Act admitted the frontier lines in Europe like that. What are you doing, guys? You should be in one country. No. This time, West admit this. And now they do not want to admit. I want to give you the formula. If Soviet Union or Yugoslavia could collapse, Canada or Ukraine or any other country can collapse. If we admit it once, we should admit it the second. And why I know about the collision in French Canada and English-speaking Canada, in Belgium, in Spain, you saw the process in Catalonia. So if people want to live like that in Scotland, what they are doing? But
let me add one thing. The problem is
because you will be the next.
One response, quick response. Because the question is very interesting. You said that one part will be the Russians, the other part is the European Union. But European Union, that is not a state. That is an organization. And the problem is that Ukraine, the problem of Ukraine, the part of Ukraine can become the part of Poland nowadays. Because the president signed a special agreement with Poland the Polish can come to Ukraine and have the same privileges as the citizenship of Ukraine as well. And their government, I mean Polish government, already think how to make it possible to take part of Ukraine, the former part of Poland, back to Poland. And that is the main thing, that not only Russia want to have, that there are some other countries as well want to take it back.
Okay, thank you. Let's not make prognosis. You know, we can only predict what they are thinking in these capitals or in Europe. But there are some steps which are made by Polish government to accept some Ukrainian territories. They are very untraceable. But this agreement, my colleague and friend said, is a very important, that Polish people can serve in Ukrainian army, serve in police, to be elected, to be civil servants, to be part of the government. So there are some tendencies. We are not saying that they are ready to accept or not to accept. It's very early to say. We saw some traces of their desire to do that. That's the second thing. I want to disagree with my friend. Ukraine can be a part of European Union. If there is independent part of Ukraine or the whole Ukraine, or I don't know what will stay after this peace agreement, would like to be an independent state and maybe to go to European Union, they can be a part of European Union. The only thing that all European leaders say they are not ready to accept Ukraine. They do not see Ukraine in the European Union. And you may found that many times they are saying, Macron, any other leaders, they say, no time, it is not the time. It can take 20, 25, how many years, nobody knows how many. The same is about NATO. They are totally against Ukraine to be a part of NATO. Okay, sorry.
I have two questions.
Okay. I will start from second.
Okay, so I will ask the second question first. Like we have a,
sorry.
Like we have a North Korea and South Korea division on the 38th parallel, but for that there has been a requirement of US presence, US troops presence there. Similarly, East Germany and West Germany, again there was presence of the troops. So is there something likely on the same lines where the Napier River dividing Ukraine in East and West Ukraine, and maybe have the same kind? Would Russia accept the presence of foreign troops on the Ukrainian land? That's the question second, sir.
And the second?
And the question one, sir.
Okay.
As we look at the Europeans, we find out that like Henry Kissinger spoke recently in Davos and talked about giving land for peace to the Russians. And then again, Italians are talking about receding back in terms of how they do not want sanctions to go ahead. And we are hearing Macron, French president, talking about not humiliating Russians being a great land power. And all these talk is dividing Europe. History tells us that when Europe gets divided, the Americans get involved, the NATO gets involved, and Article 5 gets in, and they feel more insecure, they feel more fearful. So what's the position of Russia there? Is Russia all right with this division? Because the more these get divided, these Europeans, the more NATO gets involved, the more Americans get involved.
So NATO is not involved officially, but doing everything unofficially to put fuel into this conflict, into the fire of this conflict. And they are ready to fight up to the last Ukrainian soldier, up to the last Ukrainian. They are not thinking about Ukrainian people. They are fighting with us, but with the hands of Ukrainians. And they do not pay much attention that Ukrainians are dying during this conflict, and Russians are. So this is their goal, to make two friendly people there killing themselves. This is what they are fond of doing. I saw their faces when they're discussing supplying them new weapons. They are testing their weapons to sell it after, just to understand how it works. But after Azovstal victory, the rate of their readiness to fight is going down. immediately going down. And we're listening to such wise, I'm not joking, wise people like Kissinger, who started saying normal things. Of course, there is a great distance we have to go between what they're saying now and up to the agreement. But an idea to make agreement is now in the air in Western capitals. You know why they cannot reach the agreement very fast and to understand? Because somebody should punish for their mistakes, for the economic crises in their countries caused by anti-Russian sanctions. You cannot admit them. You see the inflation, the rate of inflation. You see the prices for oil, for gas. And I will see what European people say to their governments after the winter when they receive their bills for gas, electricity, water, hot water and other things. What they say to Mr. Scholz: we are losing our working places, you are closing factories because of that, you assist Ukrainians for billions of euros, and we are staying without job and staying without gas, electricity. For what? For two people stealing each other, and Americans will be laughing. That's one part. The second part is, I don't know what will be the agreement, what will be the red line. My president said two things crystal clear: demilitarization of Ukraine and denazification. I especially put my words about Nazism to the end. Pakistan took part in the Second World War, but was not involved that much as other countries into this awful war. Just imagine the figures. 27.8 million of Soviet people were killed by Germans. 27 identified people were killed. Half of these were not soldiers. Half of these were civilians. And it was genocide, which Germans organized against Soviet people. 15 million. And there are different figures, but more than half of these 15 million were executed by Germans. Not killed by bombs, by shooting, were executed specially. Can you imagine these figures? We remember this very well. And when we see these Nazi insignia on the uniform of Ukrainian soldiers, their tattoos, look in the net, you can find whatever. Their swastikas, their Hitler's portraits, how they make these saluting, Nazi saluting. You know, we cannot admit that at all. Nazism is not only against Jews. Their president is Jew. And he said, we cannot have Nazism because I'm Jew. No, Nazism is against any nation. If one nation is against any other nation, this is Nazism. If they say Ukrainian is above all, Ukrainian is exceptional, and Russians are just go under the carpet, go to the shame corner, this is Nazism. And I was surprised when this CG, the harasser, who was from the country, who killed 27 million of people in my country. My grandfather was a lieutenant general that war. And thanks God I knew him. He told me a lot of stories about what was war. You know, can you imagine my aunt, who was the wife of a diplomat at that time, every night he was on duty on the roof of the house to water bombing the fire bombs. Every night they were on duty in civil defense. We do not have any family in Russia who was not touched by the war. That is why when we see Nazi flags, this saluting, these slogans there, we cannot make them alive. Nazis must be terminated up to dust, fired up to dust. This is what my president said. demilitarization, and denazification. After all, we will see what will be the result of that. And shame on the countries who support Nazis. When they allow these Nazis marching in European capitals, in Baltic republics, when they dismantle Soviet monuments, and they're marching, these old guys, 90 years old, with Nazi insignia, in Baltic countries, where Russians do not have citizenship. They have passports of allies. This is practice in Lithuania, in Estonia, in Latvia. They have citizens and non-citizens. Non-citizens are Russians. This is in 21st century. I think it looks like a colonialism. You know, but we are not colony. We are proud people. And I will finish my speech on that issue. They made gravest mistake. One German Prussian leader, said that he said that he knows Bismarck, I'm sorry, yes, Bismarck, he said he knows 100 methods to take out bear from its life, but he doesn't know even one to push him back. They wanted to see the bear. Okay.
Sir, my name is Zahid Mirza from DNN News. So right from the early days till the recent times, Mr. Zalil, he is unwilling. So what reason lies behind this? And on the other hand, we are seeing when this war will be ended.
So about Mr. Zelensky. So my minister, the press secretary to the president, said and repeated many times, the potentially meeting can be held when the agreement is ready. Meeting for meeting is absolutely impossible. Mr. Zelensky lied to Mr. Putin and to French president and to German chancellor in Paris. After that, he's not trustable. As I said, his hand cannot be shaken. So what I want to say, they change their position every day. The documents are on their tables. How can you negotiate with people who are changing their mind twice, thrice per day? If they are ready for serious talk, first experts, I just disclose you the state secret how leaders work. First of all, the agreement is prepared by the experts. Then it is discussed by the foreign ministers. And as a final moment, act, the meeting of the leaders, where they agreed on or disagree, but there must be a document. Ukrainian side is not ready. They're thinking about some magic weapons which assist them to change the situation. Only several countries in the world have these magic weapons. Ukrainians, they do not have, thanks God. And we will not allow them to have it. Our economy, of course, there will be a serious impact on the economy. I cannot say that we are very okay under these sanctions. You see that trouble is going up. The economy is stable. There is no starvation. There is no poverty in Russia. Everything is much better than in other countries, some other countries. But of course, sanctions will impact us and affect us. Our government is working day and night on finding the solution, how to find the way out of that. And trust me, they will find out. We saw much more difficult times in our history. I don't remember the period in Russian history where we were okay, where we lived in soft times. You know, when I'm so old that I remember Mr. Brezhnev. Just understand that. I remember Brezhnev times, I remember Andropov times, I remember Gorbachev times and Yeltsin times, and you know, if we survived during Yeltsin times, we survived in every situation. But trust me, you cannot even imagine what was happening in Russia during Mr. Yeltsin. But now the situation is stable and okay. And if these guys cross the Atlantic think that if I do not have some French cosmetics and some jacket from Paris, is it good? Yeah. I will immediately hand up my hands and say, I surrender, so please forgive me. Uncle Sam, I will behave. Don't worry, I will behave. I will tell you a small story. Maybe you will use it. When I was in New York, it was a snowfall. Just some snowfall, not serious. And I saw the paralyzed city. City was paralyzed. My mom, she's 71. She's living near Moscow. I'm living 20 kilometers from Moscow in my house. Every morning, during the winter times, digs her car out and drive. And snowfall is, you can imagine that it can be a meter of snow. They want to fight with us. They want to fight with this old lady who is digging her vehicle every morning up from the snow without paying attention on that. But 15 minutes, oh, Andrei, don't worry, 15, I said, maybe you call. No, 15, 20 minutes, I'm okay. 71, and then drive to Moscow. Are they serious?